What's going on, Bird Gang? This is Darren Sproles here. I just want to thank y'all for tuning in to Eagles Brawl of the Brawl Network. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star rating. Fly Eagles Fly.
All right, thanks for tuning in to Eagles Brawl of the Brawl Network. However you're listening, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get the podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Joining me right now is NJ.com's Mike Kaye, who's becoming a frequent flyer of Eagles Brawl. But I had to have him on because my guy Mike, Carson Wentz, is struggling, and you put the perfect article out when he said the sky isn't falling, he's not worried. You said, hey, Carson, it might be time to start being a little worried. What's going on with him, do you think? I mean, the accuracy is just not there. I was saying on previous episodes, I'm waiting for the Eagles to come out. I'm waiting for Doug to come out. I'm waiting for that excuse that groin injury he suffered in training camp is still lingering and so it's hindering his play. I'm waiting for something else, a legitimate, some tangent type excuse to hold on to, because I don't have anything right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint. I think if I had the answer, you would have read it in that article. Look, he's always had accuracy issues. And when we talk about accuracy, we're not talking about his completion percentage. We're talking about where he puts the ball. We're talking about ball placement. I think, from a general fan perspective, accuracy comes in completion percentage. Well, no. If he's setting up guys to kind of be taken down right away, or he's setting up guys to take shots, or, he's got a lot of crossers that are high, so guys have to stop, and they're not picking up yards after the catch, stuff like that. He's always had those issues. Mm-hmm. He's always aimed kind of high. He's never been particularly proficient in throwing to his left either. So we knew about that stuff. I think I'm more concerned about the decision-making process, this hero ball that he keeps playing. And look, it works. When it works, it works. When it fails, it's a miserable experience. And you're looking at kind of what's going on from the standpoint of, the first game you could say, well, he was making a lot of mistakes because he was being rushed into the pocket. They weren't using him correctly. There were design rollouts in this previous game against the Rams. In this game against the Rams. There were, protection shifts to give him time. The offensive line did a fantastic job on Sunday, and he had plenty of time. And he was still missing some really easy throws. Look, he's always been a tight window thrower when throwing downfield. He's not a jump ball guy. He's not Nick Foles. But the interception to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was unacceptable, as Doug Pederson said. Frankly, it was a terrible decision. If you rewatch the broadcast, it's very clear that there was safety help rovering by Carson. I asked Carson specifically, what did he see on that play? And he thought that he could fit it, in front of the corner, who JJ had beat by maybe, in my opinion, half a step. It kind of seemed like the corner was downplaying his speed to kind of bait Wentz. I don't know. I think he is trying to put everything on him. I think there's the thought process of, wow, this team should have a ton of big plays because the guys that they signed or drafted in the offseason, Deshaun Jackson's back. They only have 6 plays of over 20 yards so far this season. And that's just not going to cut it. Doug Pederson said today that they didn't really get to build chemistry during training camp. Well, Carson was out for that final week of camp, but they made the excuse that he could have practiced if he wanted to. They treated it like the final week of the preseason. And look, everybody had the same protocols and parameters that were set for them in this unprecedented offseason. Sure, you could, in a vacuum, the unprecedented offseason is an excuse, but when all 32 teams are dealing with it and you're 0-2 and you see teams putting up tons of points, including the 2 teams that you faced to start the season, that excuse is kind of lame. Actually, if you really look at it, they started off, 17-0 to start the first half against the Redskins. If anything, they didn't implode until after Carson Wentz threw his first pick of the year late in that second quarter against Washington. So I'm not really sure what the situation is here. I don't really know. I can't put my finger on it. It's just a lot going on.
None of us can, but I think that was probably the best answer so far, is that it's the decision making. I mean, this is a guy who averages almost, outside his rookie year, 7 interceptions a year, and he's already up to 4. I don't. What must be different out there for him? I can't fathom what's different from last year to this year. I know the Scangarello effect's in there, the Morningwig's imprint, but I mean, there can't be that much difference to have this happen.
I mean, I think a lot of people are going hard after Pederson and his play calling, but I think the past 2 games, I do think that Pederson's had some pretty good plans in pockets of the games, but clearly your dogs agree.
Yeah, the dogs in there, they're not happy about the Eagles playing this lately.
Yeah, look, I think Pederson's the least of their problems. I think Carson's become an issue in a lot of ways. I don't think Carson's the problem, but he's definitely not part of the solution. Mm-hmm. I thought the offensive line did a really good job of battling back this past week. I think Lane Johnson made a world of difference, and he was phenomenal yesterday. Sunday. But I think when you look at the grand scheme of things, I'm not really sure what's different. He's got 4 of his 5 remaining of his starters from last season. He's been in the offense for 5 years. The offense isn't really all that different. He's had the same head coach for 5 years. The quarterback's coach has been around him his entire career. They've had the same offensive line coach for 5 years, actually longer. There's not a lot of difference. Like, if you want to talk about Jalen Reagor and John Hightower being new guys, that's fine. I mean, Doug Pederson made it sound like Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside were new to the offense, but J.J. played 16 games last season. Ward has been around for 4 summers. So, I don't buy that excuse. I don't really understand what's new here. I don't get it at all.
And I'm with you. Doug looks fed up with answering for Carson. I know that he starts off in this presser saying, I want to have I want to say that he implies it as a buddy type relationship with his quarterback, but I mean, it's not like you see that though. You don't see buddy type friendships with head coaches and quarterbacks around the league. That's not how Bill Belichick and Tom Brady won. That's not how Bill Walsh and Joe Montana won. Sean Payton, Drew Brees aren't like that either. So on and so forth. Is that a problem?
I mean, I think it's we wouldn't know it unless we're in the rooms with these guys. But I do think that sometimes Carson does get treated with kid gloves. I actually said that in 2018 when I got here, and a lot of people gave me flack for it. I think Carson's grown in a lot of ways as a leader, but I also think sometimes the team protects him in ways that they don't really need to. He's a big boy. Look, I don't know necessarily what's being said behind the scenes, but clearly there's some frustration because, look, Doug Pederson's an offensive coach, and when his guy that he's been, trying to develop for 5 years is,
regressing. He's regressing so far.
Well, I wouldn't say he's regressing. I don't like that word for Carson. I just think mentally he's not processing quick enough. Or he's not I actually think he's more static than regressing. We've seen all these issues. It's more so that they're coming in bunches to start the season, so they're magnified. I think he's been mediocre in a lot of ways. I wrote this morning that I thought he's been inadequate and immobile. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if he's regressed. I think that's a tough thing to say.
I don't want to say his talent has regressed. The decision making though is just something I'm not accustomed to. There is always that one game a year, it seems like, where he just has a complete meltdown of a game. But I mean, to see it this consistent now, I'm not accustomed to that. Even at North Dakota State, you didn't really see stuff like this either. I don't know what to make of it. So I guess I'm just fumbling for words here because I'm just still surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I think your injury theory has some weight. I mean, I don't know if that's the case. He hasn't been on the injury report. And so if he is injured, that opens up a whole can of worms. Doug Pederson's been asked about it multiple times. Look, I also think Carson's a very guarded guy. I don't think he really says what he means very often. And look, I think they have a must-win game. Like, I thought the Rams game was pretty close to must-win. Now, like, if they don't beat the Bengals, this thing's going to fall off like the...
absolutely.
It's going to be really bad. And I think, like, right now, if I think the Eagles are 6.5-point favorites on the Bengals, I would take the points.
I would too.
Look, and here's the thing: even if they do bounce back against the Bengals, are you going to be satisfied as a fan? Like, look, I'm an objective beat writer, but like from the fan base's perspective, do they even care if they don't blow out the Bengals? Like, if they win this upcoming game 20-16, is that going to be good enough for you to feel good about this team? I don't think they're very good. They've gotten significantly younger. They have 18 players who have 2 years or less experience. They elected 8 captains. And I got to tell you, each one of those captains has a hand in these failures. Brandon Graham, maybe is the only guy that I would say that has like shown up of those players. Well, Kelsey too, I guess. But like Duke Riley's had some really terrible moments on defense. Fletcher Cox has kind of been on snooze.
Mm-hmm.
McLeod's had some moments too. I can't hate on McLeod, but like overall, like Jason Peters had a terrible week 1.
Mm-hmm.
And Carson has not played well. So I think I don't know where you're getting the leadership from now. And the thing is too, you look at how bad this team has been playing. They don't really have the depth to just be like, okay, cool, you're benching Nate Gary. You know what I mean? So it's just like they're in a weird spot. And I don't know at what point this goes from a retooling to a rebuild. But right now, the Eagles players are making it easy on Howie Roseman to determine who's going to be back next year and who's not.
Absolutely. And then I wanted to ask you, what do you think about Jim Schwartz and that defense and how they've been producing? Is it finally the time where they start looking at Jim Schwartz as seat warming up a little bit? I mean, again, it's only 2 games into it, but this defense should not be playing like that.
No, I agree, especially from a running standpoint. Now, they gave up 191 rushing yards against the Rams. That's not good. They've given up, I think, I'm trying to remember how many. Then they gave up 57 yards against Washington, but they've given up 4 total rushing touchdowns. That's not a Jim Schwartz run defense. In 2017, they were first in the league in run defense. 2018, they were 7th in the league. Last year, they were 14th in the league. So they've regressed in that standpoint. But I also think their personnel's kind of regressed, too. I'm a big Javon Hargrave guy, but he clearly didn't seem ready to compete. Look, the pre-snap motion of the Rams is no joke. They do have a simple offense, but the way that they move guys around really froze up the linebackers. It's maybe the worst linebacker game I've ever seen. From both run and pass standpoints. Like, Nathan Gary's getting a lot of crap for the 2 touchdowns he gave up to Higbee, but he was just as much to blame for the Robert Woods touchdown as well, where he got kind of stuck there. So, look, it just was not a good afternoon for this linebacking core. The Eagles haven't invested in linebacker in forever, and that's kind of why you're seeing what you see. But I think, I think we need to see what happens now because, Barnett's now got his feet under him. Hargrave's got his feet under him. They don't really have a lot of injuries, and maybe this was just kind of a perfect storm of terribleness. That early fumble kind of shook everybody. I'm not very optimistic about this team. I think right now they're a 6-win team, but, with the way this Eagles team has been in the past, who knows? They can get hot, they can get some upsets, and maybe they turn things around, but I just am not very confident in them right now.
At what point do we start looking at the Howie Roseman's past couple of drafts, and I mean, I feel like the presence of not getting enough talent, not getting enough contributors, not even talent, just depth, is really being tested by this team because they moved on from Malcolm Jenkins with the plan of moving Jalen Mills back to safety, which I would argue you brought up the point that this team is lacking leadership, whereas Malcolm was probably the best leader on this team. These last couple of drafts, I mean, dating back from 2017, they're just not getting enough from this class outside of Miles Sanders, really, and Dallas Goedert. What do we make of that?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, you're looking at if you're looking at it through rose-colored glasses, you say, look, Derek Barnett made an incredible couple of plays in the two biggest games in Eagles history, and then you, excuse me. Then you say, Avonte Maddox has been a starter in one way or another the last 3 years. I think he's played relatively well up to expectations. Yeah. Goddard has played well. I still think Josh Sweat, this is going to be a huge year for him.
Agreed.
And then, you have Miles Sanders. And I think Jalen Reagor is going to be a player.
Mm-hmm.
I was very impressed by Jack Driscoll. Look, yeah, you're right, and I think Joe Douglas deserves a lot of credit for those failures as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, Howie Roseman's got final say, and he's the guy that's going to be the guy who puts the stamp on everything. I think it's an incredibly compelling argument for the first time in a very long time to say, you know what, maybe Howie Roseman's seat is a little hot. Look, if they only win 5 games, I don't see how 2 of the 3, Carson Wentz, Doug Pederson, and Howie Roseman, don't feel a little bit of heat. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just one of those things where, this is Philly. Like,
this is Jeffrey Lurie's team.
Look, I don't know if getting rid of any of those 3 guys is the right answer because you got to replace them. I mean, who are you going to replace them at GM?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you going to replace? As much as everybody wants to say Jim Schwartz is overrated, who are you replacing him with? If you fire Doug Pederson, who are you replacing him with other than Eric Bieniemy, who's going to have offers out to craziness this year? So, to me, you don't. I was talking to the former Bills GM Doug Whaley about Zach Ertz. You don't replace a guy unless you have an idea of who you can replace him with. And I just think bringing in another college coach is not the right answer here. I don't think bringing in a retread makes a ton of sense. And if Eric B is getting blown up with offers, you're kind of screwed. So that's a situation that you got to watch play out. I do think Jim Schwartz has probably got the hottest seat that he's had since he's been here. I think the same thing could be said for Howie and Doug. It's rough. You can't really start 0-2 in this league and expect to kind of get back to the playoffs. That said, now with the 7th seed, now they have some outside hope. This division's also terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Barring the biggest failure on a special teams play I've ever seen in watching the sport for 30 years, I don't know if Dallas is – Dallas would be 0-2. 3 teams would be 0-2 in this division. So, I think this is going to be a miserable season for the Eagles fan base because it seems like the carrot's always going to be in front of the treadmill because of how bad this division is. I just don't know if they can take a bite out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Right now, that's of course how I feel right now from what they looked. They looked awful. I can't really. There's very little positives I can take away so far from this team from what they've shown. But the Jalen Hurts play designs, I wasn't against them. I thought it kind of did throw off the Rams a little bit. What did you think? Is this something that we should expect more?
Yeah, so I have a film review that's coming out Tuesday. I love the play calls. I'm not a big fan of taking your franchise quarterback off the field, and they didn't. I like what they did. So the first play that Jalen was in on, they did a split backfield look, which is very uncommon for the Eagles. They probably run it once every 4 games. So you had Miles Sanders to the left, you had Hurts to the right, you had Carson under center. They were running. They had a bigger look. So Ertz was on the outside, and John Hightower was on the outside left, and then Goddard was in line. Carson pump faked a screen pass to Miles Sanders, then he pump faked to Hurts, and literally everybody was distracted. So Dallas Goddard got open up the middle. He got hit for a 10-yard gain, a first down conversion. I thought it was a brilliant play call. Then a couple of plays later, they were on the 3-yard line. They ran it with Miles Sanders for a 2-yard gain to the 1-yard line, but Hurts was out there as the outside left wide receiver. I think that's intriguing because when you look at it, Hurts can be used in so many different ways. He's a threat as a screen pass guy because of his vision as a quarterback. You can use him as an extra passer on there. I think the idea of having Greg Ward, Carson Wentz, and him on the field at the same time is very scary for a defensive coordinator, especially if you saw what Julian Edelman did to the Eagles last year with that touchdown throw that he had.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's so many different ways that you can kind of utilize him, and frankly, he's done more to affect a meaningful regular season game than Nate Sudfeld has. So,
it's the truth.
I'm of the belief that if you're going to have a guy active, he needs to be somewhat part of the game plan, even if he's the backup quarterback. And I'm not saying that you necessarily have to make Hurts part of like a package every single game, but I think the idea and the threat of him. Look, they put out 3 plays yesterday. I didn't see I don't remember the third one that he was on, but off the top of my head. But those 2 plays, their defenses are going to have to study those. Like, you can't just not ignore Jalen Hurts' presence now. So I think that alone helps the offense.
I agree with you completely. And not only that, he's probably, outside of Boston Scott, their most physical runner as well. So I would like to see him get using that in the run game as well. That's an interesting concept for Jalen Hurts. I like it. I'm a fan. To me, and I mean, this might be an overreaction and recency bias, but I hated the Wildcat with Michael Vick and Donovan McNabb. I thought it was drive killers every time. Donovan looked like he didn't know what to do every time Vick was on the field. This looked a little different. This looked a little more fluid. There was a little more comfort from Carson Wentz. It didn't seem weird as it did with those Wildcats back in the day.
Yeah, I don't think Wildcats are the answer. I think you do regular personnel and regular formations, and you just have Jalen Hurts as one of those guys. You can create plays off of that. I think his speed also allows you to get him involved in pre-snap motion. So if he's running behind the quarterback, I think you're in a really good spot where you can tease them as a runner and a passer. And, I think it's a very interesting situation they have here with Jalen Hurts. And obviously Carson Wentz, the pressure's going to build as he continues to kind of be a letdown this season.
All right, Mike, I'm looking forward for that film review on Jalen Hurts coming out on NJ.com. I'm also intrigued on the No Huddle show this week with all the stuff that's going on in the articles with a lot of drama already. 2 games into the season. Wow. A lot of things going on in Philly.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is. I can only imagine. So, as everybody knows, go ahead, NJ.com. Mike Kaye, Chris Franklin are doing a great job. No Huddle show. I'm sure it's going to be very, very insightful, very impactful this week. And, NJ.com. Go subscribe. Find out all Mike's work and Chris's work because a lot of good stuff there. I felt a little better today reading because I thought when Carson came out and said that, I was like, come on, man. Own it. Take it. There is some sort of panic that needs to be there, and the nonchalant attitude wasn't for me. And then I see you come out with that article, and I'm like, I got to get Mike on the show.
Hey, well, I appreciate you having me, man. I'm going to go watch some football and try to rest because I was up till like 3 a.m. last night.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully this Sunday the Eagles can win and give you something good to write about.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That would be nice. All right, Mike, thanks for joining the show, man.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me.
Of course.